Let me ask you something. How much of your happiness depends on other people? The truth is, if you can't be happy alone, you'll never truly be happy in a crowd. This isn't about pushing people away. It's about building an unshakable foundation within yourself. Because real strength isn't needing someone, it's choosing them, not depending on them. You ever see people jumping from relationship to relationship, job to job, always searching? This isn't doing well though. You ever see people jumping from relationship to relationship, job to job, always searching? That's not living, that's running. Running from the one person they can't escape, themselves. But you're different. You understand that fulfillment isn't out there, it's in here. People fear being alone because silence forces them to face their own thoughts. But here's the secret. That's where the magic happens. When you stop needing distractions, you start hearing your true voice. And that voice has got power. You think a toxic relationship is better than being alone? Think again. Loneliness is temporary. Weakness is forever. Protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Protect your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's handing you happiness. You have to build it yourself. And when you do, that's when you become, so grow, not for them, for you. Be so strong in who you are that no absence breaks you. Be so full of your own light that no darkness dims you. Because when you're happy alone, that's when you're truly free. Now go out there and own your life. Unstoppable. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with yourself? Truly sat there. No phone, no distractions, no noise, just you and your own thoughts. Most people can't do it. They'll do anything to avoid that moment because deep down, they're afraid of what they might find. But here's the truth you need to hear. If you can't be happy alone, you'll never be happy with someone else. That's not an opinion. That's a law of life. You think a relationship, a promotion, a new circle of friends is going to fill that hollow space inside you? It won't. It can't. Because happiness isn't something you collect from the outside, it's something you cultivate from within. Look around you. How many people do you know who are constantly searching, always reaching for the next thing, the next person, the next high, thinking this will finally be what makes them whole? They're chasing a ghost. They're running from the one thing they don't want to face, themselves. But you're different. You're here because you know there's another way. You know that real strength, real freedom doesn't come from needing someone else to complete you. It comes from standing tall on your own 2 feet and saying, I am enough. Think about it. Why do we fear solitude so much? Because society tells us being alone is a failure. It whispers in your ear that if you're not surrounded by people, if you're not constantly validated, you're doing something wrong. That's a lie. A dangerous one. Because the moment you tie your happiness to other people, you give them power over your peace. You hand them the keys to your emotions and say, here, decide if I get to be happy today. That's not living. That's surrendering. But when you learn to be happy alone, that's when you take your power back. That's when you realize you don't need anyone's permission to feel whole. You ever watch a tree standing strong in a storm? It doesn't rely on the tree next to it to keep from falling. Its roots go deep. Its strength comes from within. You have to be like that. You have to dig your roots so deep into your own worth that no absence, no rejection, no outside force can shake you. And here's the thing. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about knowing you don't need them to survive. There's a difference between wanting someone and needing them. Needing someone is weakness. Wanting them, that's choice. That's power. When you can walk into a room full of people and know, truly know, that you're complete just as you are, that's when you start living on your own terms. So how do you get there? You start by facing yourself. You sit in the silence. You start by facing your own thoughts. You stop drowning them out with noise, with distractions, with other people's voices. You listen. You ask yourself the hard questions. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I believe in when no one's around to judge? What brings me joy when no one's there to applaud me? Because until you answer those questions, you'll always be searching outside yourself for something that was inside you all along. This isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. It means staring at your own reflection, flaws and all, and not looking away. It means sitting with your own company and not reaching for someone else to fill the quiet. But that discomfort, that's where growth happens. That's where you find out what you're really made of. And when you come out on the other side, you'll realize something life-changing. Happiness is something we find in other people, in achievements, in possessions. It's not. Happiness is the peace of knowing yourself so deeply that nothing outside you can take it away. It's the quiet confidence of walking into a room alone and feeling no less than those who walk in with an entourage. It's the unshakable understanding that you are the source, not the recipient of your own joy. So stop waiting. Stop hoping someone else will hand you the happiness you're meant to create for yourself. The world doesn't owe you joy. You owe it to yourself. And the day you realize that is the day you become unstoppable. Because when you're strong enough to be happy alone, you're no longer at the mercy of anyone else's presence or absence. You're free, truly, completely, undeniably free. Let's talk about solitude. Not the kind that feels like loneliness, but the kind that feels like power. Most people run from being alone because they've been conditioned to believe it means something's missing. But what if I told you that solitude isn't emptiness? It's space. Space to hear yourself think. Space to remember who you are when no one's telling you who to be. Space to grow roots so deep that no storm can knock you over. That's not loneliness, that's liberation. Think about the strongest people you know, the ones who move through life with a quiet confidence, the ones who don't crumble when left to their own company. What do they have that others don't? They've made peace with solitude. They don't just tolerate being alone, they've learned to thrive in it. Because here's the truth, if you can't stand your own presence, why would anyone else? If you're constantly seeking external noise to drown out your own thoughts, what does that say about the relationship you have with yourself? The most dangerous thing you can do is avoid your own mind. The thoughts you ignore don't disappear. They just grow louder in the quiet moments you try to escape. But solitude? That's where the magic happens. That's where you stop being a reflection of what others want and start becoming who you're meant to be. No distractions, no performances, no pretending, just raw, unfiltered you. And yeah, that's uncomfortable at first. It's easier to scroll, to binge, to lose yourself in other people's lives than to sit with your own. But discomfort is the price of growth. The moments that challenge you are the ones that change you. And when you stop running from solitude, you'll start to see it for what it really is. Not an absence of people, but a presence of something far more important, yourself. This isn't about isolating yourself from the world. It's about building an unshakable core so that when you do engage with the world, you do it from a place of wholeness, not lack. There's a difference between being alone because no one's there and being alone because you choose to be. One feels like abandonment. The other feels like autonomy. One leaves you desperate for company. The other lets you select company that actually deserves a place in your life. When you're comfortable in solitude, you stop settling for relationships that drain you just so you can say you're not alone. You stop clinging to people who don't value you just to fill the silence. You start demanding more, not from others, but from yourself. Because here's the secret no one tells you. The people who are truly happy in relationships are the ones who didn't need one to be happy in the first place. The ones who thrive in crowds are the ones who don't depend on them. They've done the work. They've faced the silence. They've wrestled with their own thoughts and come out stronger on the other side. And that strength, it's magnetic. It draws people in. Not because you need them, but because you choose them. That's the power of solitude. It doesn't isolate you from the world. It connects you to yourself first, so that every connection you make after that is real, intentional, and unshakable. So the next time you find yourself alone, don't rush to fill the space. Sit with it. Listen to it. Let it teach you. It's something you build, brick by brick, boundary by boundary. Most people treat their inner peace like it's negotiable, something they're willing to trade for attention, for affection, for temporary comfort. But real strength? That comes when you declare your peace non-negotiable, when you stop letting people and circumstances dictate your emotional weather. Think about how many times you've allowed someone else's mood to become yours, how often you've sacrificed your calm just to keep the peace with others. That's not peace. That's surrender. The moment you decide your peace is worth protecting is the moment you stop apologizing for what you won't tolerate. It's not about being rigid or unyielding. It's about understanding that your mental space is sacred ground. Would you let someone dump trash in your living room? Then why do we let people dump their negativity, their drama, their chaos into our minds? Every time you compromise your peace for the sake of keeping someone else comfortable, You're telling yourself that their comfort matters more than your sanity. That's a dangerous precedent to set. Protecting your peace means having the courage to walk away from what drains you, even when it's familiar, even when it's comfortable. Even when leaving means being alone for a while. Because solitude with peace is infinitely more valuable than company filled with turmoil. Too many people stay in toxic situations because they're afraid of the temporary loneliness that might come with leaving, not realizing they're choosing permanent unrest over temporary discomfort. That's not living. That's surviving on scraps of tranquility. Your peace should be like a fortress, not to keep everyone out, but to ensure only what deserves entry gets in. That means setting boundaries without guilt. It means saying no without explanation. It means understanding that not every battle is yours to fight. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every person deserves access to you. When you start treating your peace as the non-negotiable foundation of your life rather than an occasional luxury, everything changes. Your relationships improve because they're chosen, not clung to. Your decisions become clearer because they're made from a place of calm, not desperation. Your life gains direction because you're no longer blown off course by every storm someone else creates. This isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation. The world will always have chaos to offer. People will always have problems to share. People will always come knocking. But you get to decide what stays at your door and what gets invited in. Because here's the truth they don't tell you. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't offer peace to others if you haven't first cultivated it within yourself. The stronger you become in protecting your peace, the more you'll have to give. But only to those who deserve it. Only in ways that don't cost you your sanity. That's the power of making your peace non-negotiable. It transforms everything without changing anything except your willingness to tolerate what disrupts it. The world doesn't owe you happiness, success, or fulfillment. This is the first and most brutal truth you must accept if you want to build real strength. So many people go through life waiting for their big break, waiting for someone to recognize their worth, waiting for circumstances to magically align in their favor. But here's the reality that will set you free. No one is coming to rescue you. No divine intervention will suddenly make everything easy. No lucky break will absolve you from doing the work. The universe is indifferent to your struggles. And that's actually the greatest gift you could receive, because it means your destiny is entirely in your hands. This realization separates the strong from the perpetually disappointed. The strong understand that validation must come from within first, that success is built brick by painful brick, that happiness is an inside job. The weak, they waste years waiting for external permission to start living. They blame their circumstances, their upbringing, their bad luck for why they haven't created the life they want. But here's what they don't see. Every moment spent waiting for the world to give you what you want is a moment stolen from creating it yourself. The most empowered people you'll ever meet aren't those who had everything handed to them. They're the ones who stopped expecting handouts and started building with whatever they had, however little it was. Consider this: every time you catch yourself thinking it's not fair or why me, you're giving your power away. You're essentially saying your life is something that happens to you rather than something you create. The moment you shift from why is this happening to me to what is this teaching me is the moment you stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a student of life. Hardship doesn't discriminate. It comes for everyone. But where most people see obstacles, the strong see opportunities to develop resilience, creativity, and character. They understand that the world isn't against them. It's simply not concerned with them at all. And that neutrality is what gives them the freedom to carve their own path. This mindset shift changes everything. When you stop waiting for external validation, you become unstoppable because your worth isn't tied to anyone's approval. When you stop expecting life to be fair, you stop wasting energy on resentment and start channeling it into creation. When you accept that no one owes you anything, every kindness becomes a gift rather than an expectation. The most liberated people are those who've stopped keeping score with the universe, who've stopped waiting for permission to go after what they want. They've internalized the truth that if it's going to be, it's up to them. Not their parents, not their boss, not some mystical force of karma. This isn't about becoming cynical or hard-hearted. It's about developing the mature understanding that you are the architect of your experience. The world will throw storms your way, that's guaranteed. But whether those storms destroy you or strengthen you depends entirely on how you choose to meet them. Will you shake your fist at the sky and demand it stop raining? Son, don't wait for permission. That choice, and it is always a choice, makes all the difference between a life of passive suffering and one of active creation. The sooner you stop waiting for the world to change and start changing yourself, the sooner you'll discover the incredible power that's been within you all along. In the relentless noise of modern life, the endless notifications, the constant demands, the swirling opinions of social media, we've lost something sacred. The ability to hear our own voice. Most people move through their days bombarded by external input, never pausing long enough to ask themselves the most important question: what do I actually think? We've become echo chambers for everyone else's expectations, parents' dreams, society's timelines, friends' advice, all while our authentic voice gets buried under layers of borrowed beliefs. But here's the painful truth. If you don't take control of your attention, you'll spend your entire life living someone else's version of success. The path to true fulfillment begins when you silence the noise and finally listen to that quiet, persistent whisper within, the one you've been drowning out with distractions because you're afraid of what it might say. Consider how much of your daily mental space is occupied by thoughts that aren't even yours. The fear of missing out that keeps you scrolling, the anxiety about falling behind that drives unnecessary hustle, the shame about not measuring up to curated social media lives. These aren't your authentic concerns. They're mental viruses you've absorbed from a culture designed to keep you in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. The first act of rebellion is to create space between these external voices and your internal truth. This requires ruthless editing of your inputs, what you consume, who you follow, how you spend your precious attention. Every piece of content, every relationship, every commitment is either feeding your clarity or clouding it. There is no neutral ground when it comes to what you allow into your mind. The magic happens in the silence between thoughts, that sacred space where your true self resides. But you'll never hear it if you're constantly filling every empty moment with podcasts, playlists, and pandemonium. We become terrified of stillness because it forces us to confront the uncomfortable gap between who we are and who we pretend to be. Yet this is exactly where your power lies, in the raw, unfiltered honesty of your own company. When you stop outsourcing your thinking to influencers, experts, and algorithms, you start discovering beliefs you didn't know you held, passions you forgot you had, solutions you never knew existed within you. Your authentic voice doesn't emerge in committee meetings or comment sections. It reveals itself in solitude, in journal pages, in long walks without headphones, in the spaces between obligations. Finding your voice isn't about being original, it's about being honest. It's about untangling the web of shoulds that have been woven around your psyche since childhood and asking the dangerous question: do I actually want this, or did I just learn that I should? This process isn't comfortable. It requires dismantling identities you've outgrown, releasing relationships that no longer fit, and standing firm in your truth even when it disappoints others. But here's what awaits on the other side: a life that's truly yours. Not a photocopy of your parents' expectations, not a replica of your friends' choices, not a performance for social media approval. Your actual, messy, imperfect, exhilarating life, lived according to your own inner compass rather than society's loudest voices. The world will try to drown out your truth with its endless noise because conformity is easier to control. But when you cultivate the courage to listen to and honor your inner voice above all others, you become ungovernable by others' expectations. This is the ultimate act of self-liberation, not from external constraints, but from the internalized voices that have been dictating your choices. Your voice matters, not because it's perfect or profound, but because it's yours. And a life lived from that authentic place, regardless of how it compares to others, is the only life worth living. Strength isn't something you're born with, it's something you forge in the fires of adversity. Something that emerges only when you're pushed beyond what you thought were your limits. Every struggle you faced, every moment you felt completely alone, every time life has knocked you down, these weren't signs of weakness or failure. They were the anvil upon which your character was being hammered into something unbreakable. The most resilient people you know weren't made in comfort. They were shaped in chaos, tempered by trials, and hardened by having to pick themselves up time and time again. There's a reason steel must go through fire to become strong. The same principle applies to human beings. Your struggles aren't preventing your strength, they're producing it. Darkest moments. The times you were certain you couldn't go on. The challenges that seemed insurmountable. The pain that felt endless. Yet here you stand, having survived what you thought would destroy you. That's not coincidence, that's proof. proof that you're far more capable than you give yourself credit for. The problem isn't that life is too hard, it's that we've been sold the lie that strength means never struggling, when in truth, strength is what emerges from the struggle. The person you are today wasn't formed during your easy days. It was carved out in the moments when everything was on the line, when you had no choice but to dig deeper than you ever had before. Those moments weren't your undoing, they were your becoming. Too many people spend their lives running from discomfort, avoiding challenges, seeking the path of least resistance. But here's what they don't understand. By avoiding struggle, they're avoiding growth. The muscle that's never tested remains weak. The mind that's never challenged stays small. The spirit that's never strained never discovers its true capacity. Your most difficult experiences aren't obstacles on your path, they are the path. They're not detours from your destiny, they're the very things shaping you into the person capable of handling what you're meant to become. Every tear, every setback, every lonely night has been adding layers to your resilience that will serve you in ways you can't yet imagine. This isn't about glorifying suffering or pretending pain doesn't hurt. It's about recognizing that what feels like breaking is often the beginning of rebuilding yourself stronger. The Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, teaches us that there's beauty and strength in the mended places. Your scars, both visible and invisible, aren't signs of damage. They're proof of healing, evidence that you've endured and overcome. The struggles you're facing now, they're adding another layer to your story, another lesson to your wisdom, another degree to your unshakable core. Enzymes being cocky, one day you'll look back and realize that what you thought was trying to destroy you was actually preparing you for battles you didn't know were coming, for victories you couldn't yet imagine, for a version of yourself you hadn't met yet. The strongest trees don't grow in greenhouses, they weather storms. Their roots dig deeper with every challenge, their trunks grow thicker with each season. You're no different. No difference. Every struggle is another ring in your growth, another layer of resilience that can't be faked or rushed. The pain you're feeling today is the strength you'll draw from tomorrow. The loneliness you endure now will become the independence you cherish later. The obstacles in your path aren't roadblocks, they're resistance training for your soul. And when the next challenge comes, as it always does, you'll face it not with fear, but with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they've been forged in fire before and emerged not just intact but improved. That's the paradox of struggle. What feels like it's breaking you is actually making you. What seems like it's holding you back is actually preparing you to leap further than you ever thought possible. The most dangerous lie we tell ourselves is, I'll be enough when I lose the weight, when I get the promotion, when I find the right partner, when I achieve some arbitrary milestone we've been conditioned to chase. We postpone our self-acceptance like it's a reward we must earn, rather than the birthright we've had all along. But here's the liberating truth you need to hear right now. You are already enough. Not because you've checked off society's boxes of success, not because someone finally validated you, but simply because you exist. This isn't some fluffy self-help mantra. It's the unshakable foundation upon which all real growth and happiness must be built. The moment you stop tying your worth to external achievements is the moment you become truly free to pursue them from a place of wholeness rather than desperation. Consider how much of your life energy you've wasted trying to prove your worth. To parents, to partners, to peers, to perfect strangers on social media, all that striving, all that performing, all that exhausting effort to measure up to standards that were never yours to begin with. What if you simply stopped? What if you declared yourself worthy now, as is, without conditions or contingencies? This isn't about complacency. It's about recognizing that your value isn't something you create through accomplishments. It's something you carry within you that no failure can diminish and no success can enhance. The people who change the world aren't those chasing validation. They're those who decided they had something to contribute, regardless of whether anyone applauded. We've been brainwashed into believing our worth is cumulative, that we're the sum of our achievements, our relationships, our possessions. But strip all that away. The job titles, the social media followers, the material symbols of success. And what remains? You. The same you that existed before any of those things. The same you that will exist if they're all taken away. That core self isn't made more valuable by external trappings. It's what gives those trappings any meaning at all. When you start from this place of inherent worthiness, your entire relationship with ambition transforms. You no longer pursue goals to fill a void. You pursue them from overflow. You stop needing success to validate you and start seeing it as creative expression of who you already are. This radical self-acceptance terrifies the systems that profit from your insecurity. Consumer culture needs you to believe you're incomplete, so you'll keep buying solutions. Social media needs you to feel inadequate, so you'll keep chasing likes. Even well-meaning people may resist your self-assurance because it holds up a mirror to their own unexamined doubts. But when you stand firm in your enoughness, you become impervious to these manipulations. You'll still have goals and growth edges, but they'll emerge from inspiration rather than desperation. You'll still care about others' opinions, but they won't dictate your self-worth. You'll still experience failure, but it won't shake your fundamental sense of value. The paradox is that embracing your enoughness doesn't make you stagnant. It makes you unstoppable. In part 4, when you stand firm in your enoughness, it doesn't make you stagnant. It makes you, when you're not constantly trying to prove yourself, you have boundless energy for genuine creation. When you're not paralyzed by fear of inadequacy, you take bold risks. When you're not hustling for your worth, you can actually enjoy the fruits of your labor. This is the great secret they don't teach. Self-acceptance isn't the reward at the end of the journey. It's the fuel that makes the journey possible. The people who truly change the world aren't those who thought they had to earn their place in it. They're those who knew their place was guaranteed all along. Your worth isn't pending, it's pre-approved. The only thing left is for you to believe it. The love you crave from others can only truly be found within yourself first. This is the great secret that transforms relationships from prisons of need into gardens of mutual growth. Most people spend their lives searching for someone to complete them, to validate them, to make them feel whole, not realizing this desperate seeking actually repels the very connection they desire. There's a profound difference between loving someone because you choose to and loving someone because you need to. One comes from overflow, the other from emptiness. When you haven't cultivated self-love, every relationship becomes a transaction where you're secretly hoping the other person will fill your voids, soothe your wounds, and compensate for the love you refuse to give yourself. This isn't love. It's emotional outsourcing, and it's the reason so many relationships become exhausting power struggles rather than sources of mutual nourishment. Real love, the kind that doesn't suffocate or manipulate, can only exist between two people who are already whole unto themselves. Think about the healthiest relationships you've witnessed. They're not two halves clinging to form a whole, but two complete individuals choosing to walk side by side. This is why learning to love yourself deeply isn't selfish. It's the foundation for all other healthy love in your life. When you stop looking for others to validate your worth, you suddenly become free to choose partners based on genuine compatibility rather than unconscious need. You stop tolerating mistreatment because you're no longer terrified of being alone. You stop settling for breadcrumbs because you've learned to feast at your own table. The most attractive quality you can bring to any relationship isn't perfect looks or achievements. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows their value doesn't depend on being chosen. This journey of self-love isn't about reciting affirmations in the mirror. It's about developing a relationship with yourself that's based on radical honesty, unconditional acceptance, and fierce protection. It means becoming the parent, friend, and partner to yourself that you've always wished for. Speaking kindly to yourself in moments of failure. Setting boundaries even when it's uncomfortable. Honoring your needs without apology. Forgiving your mistakes without excuses. The way you love yourself sets the standard for how others will love you. People will rise or fall to meet the treatment you accept from yourself. When you love yourself deeply, you naturally attract those who reflect that love back to you while repelling those who would disrespect it. You say, you can come in without being racial because I'm your sister, father, mother, or brother. You come in without being racial because I'm your sister, father, mother, or brother. You are loved, and so will others. When you love yourself, you'll rise or fall to meet the treatment you accept from yourself. There's a quiet revolution that happens when you fall in love with your own company. You stop fearing solitude and start cherishing it as sacred space. You begin to enjoy your own thoughts, appreciate your own quirks, and trust your own intuition. This self-intimacy becomes the filter through which all other relationships must pass. Does this person add to my peace or disrupt it? Do I feel more or less myself around them? Do I feel any more impacted or more forward than myself? Now, the funny thing about this is you pretty much feel the same about them. The love you then give to others is purer because it's given freely, not extracted through neediness. The relationships you build are sturdier because they're constructed on mutual respect rather than mutual lack. through which all other relationships must pass. Does this person add to my peace or disrupt it? Do I feel more or less myself around them? Do I feel any more impacted or more forward than myself? Now, the funny thing about this is you pretty much feel the same about them. The love you then give to others is purer because it's given freely, not extracted through neediness. The relationships you build are sturdier because they're constructed on mutual respect rather than mutual lack. When you become the source of your own love, you'll never again confuse attachment for connection or loneliness for love. So here's the truth, plain and simple. Happiness alone isn't a last resort. Full enough to choose love instead of cling to it. Full enough to stand solid even when the world shakes around you. This isn't about isolation, it's about liberation. The kind of freedom that comes when you realize you were never incomplete to begin with. When you stop waiting for permission to be happy and start giving it to yourself. When you stop begging for love and start being love. For yourself first, then for those who deserve it. So grow strong. Not for the world, not for someone else, for you. Because when you can stand alone in your worth, you'll never settle for less than you deserve. And that's when life truly begins. Now go.